Warning, this podcast is intended for consenting adults. We're talking about all things non-monogamy, which means some of our conversations are going to get down and dirty. Please know we are not professionals, and these are strictly our views and opinions and in no way represent the opinions of our employers. We respect others' opinions as we know everyone in the world of non-monogamy does it differently. Hope you enjoy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of 3 Shades Deeper. I'm your host, Anthony Grayman, and as always, I'm joined by my beautiful wife.
Hello, everybody. Pinky Grayman is right here.
And the always salacious
Ava Moore.
How are you ladies doing this evening?
Wonderful.
Excellent.
I am so glad to hear that. Now, I have a question for you two ladies, and for even the people who are outside. Do you watch porn?
Absolutely.
I like real thing.
I mean, yes.
Yes, there's nothing better than when you are in the moment. I don't mind porn. It's almost kind of like background music for me sometimes. Like I'm not going to be necessarily focused and watching, but it serves a purpose.
I think your question is, what kind of porn do I like to watch?
Oh, we're not going in anybody's search history. let's leave that. A person's search history is their own.
No.
But
I'm referring to the quality.
the quality, yes, quality is important. You know, you have from homemade all the way to, very Hollywood level, production level, and all the way in between. And everybody has their own preference. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because of the guests that we have on. And as always, you're noticing a trend here, Ava. All of our guests are people that Pinky has been
Interested in sharing with us, educating us about, yes.
Not that it's a bad thing either, but this...
You mean like me telling you, you motherfucker have to listen to this beautiful woman or man because they have some kind of a meaning and depth behind their message? That kind of thing? Like,
yeah, that
Pinky,
kind of thing.
Pinky make me kind of thing?
Yes.
Pinky made me.
Okay.
Yes,
And then she's like, did you do your homework? Did you do your homework?
Did you take notes?
Well,
Because I'm going to be asking you.
This homework wasn't so bad. I did peek a little bit.
This was great homework.
This was great homework.
Great homework.
Our guest that we are having on today is Cindy Gallop. And she, Pinky found out about her through a very viral TED Talk video, which we're going to actually link in our show notes. So if you want to see what the video is, please link in the description of the show. But she also is the founder and creator of a website called MakeLoveNotPorn. And who better to tell us about that than the person herself? So without further ado, we present to you Cindy Gallop.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hello.
Delighted to be here.
Thank you for joining us and giving us your time to be on our podcast. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself? Tell us about Cindy. How did Cindy get to the point that she is now on our non-monogamy podcast?
Sure. Well, I think, the short answer is by accident, because everything in my life and career has happened by accident. I've never planned anything. So for our listeners' benefit, I am half English, half Malaysian Chinese. My father was English. My mother is Chinese. I was born in the UK, but when I was 6, my parents moved to Brunei in Borneo, which is where I grew up. I grew up in Asia, went back to the UK for school and university. My career background is 40 years working in brand building, marketing, and advertising. And the reason Make Love Not Porn came about by accident is because I date younger men. They tend to be in their 20s. And about 17, 18 years ago, I began realizing through dating younger men that I was encountering an issue that would never have crossed my mind if I had not encountered it very intimately and personally. I realized I was experiencing what happens when two things converge. And I stress the dual convergence because most people think it's only one thing. I realized I was experiencing what happens when today's total freedom of access to hardcore porn online meets our society's equally total reluctance to talk openly and honestly about sex. It's when those two factors converge that porn becomes sex education by default in not a good way. So I found myself encountering a number of sexual behavioral memes in bed. I went, whoa, I know where that behavior is coming from. I thought, gosh, if I'm experiencing this, other people must be as well. I didn't know that because 17 years ago, nobody was talking about it. No one was writing about it. This was me in isolation as a naturally action-oriented person going, I'm going to do something about this.
So, if you don't mind me asking, what
Yeah,
were
sure.
some of those behaviors that you happened to see that were just like, I know where you got that from, that you can say that for you, because what happens is sometimes the behaviors that are portrayed in porn are things that some people do enjoy and they see it, but that might be a small minority. So what were one of those behaviors that really stand out to you that said, whoa?
Sure. No, and I hasten to add, but by the way, folks, I've spent 16 years emphasizing the issue isn't porn. The issue is that we don't talk about sex in the real world. And I say that because I have said publicly on many occasions, everything you see in porn, somebody somewhere loves doing. In fact, millions of somebodies. The issue isn't that it appears in porn. The issue is assuming automatically that is what you must do in real life. And so, as I was explaining, because this will answer your question, 16 years ago, purely as a side venture, I put up on no money a tiny clunky website at MakeLoveNotPorn.com that in its original version was kind of a public service announcement. So the construct was porn world versus real world. Here's what happens in the porn world, here's what really happens in the real world. And to answer your question, and by the way, you can find these original slides on the homepage of MakeLoveNotPorn.com today because we have them as part of our origin story. So they said things like, porn world, all men love coming on women's faces, all women love having their faces come on. Real world, some people like this, some people don't. It's a good idea to find out before you suddenly spring it on them.
Yes, please.
It's the through line, if you like, was very much about the key thing is real world communication and consent. So another slide was porn world, women have no hair down there. Real world, actually, some women like to shave or wax, others don't. Some men love that. Other men like women au naturel. It's entirely up to you. So it really was just bringing, real world observations and perspectives. But that was very badly needed. As transpired when I launched Make Love Not Porn in that original version at TED in 2009, as you've all seen with my talk, I became the only TED speaker to utter the words, come on my face, on the TED stage, all times in succession. The talk went viral as a result, and it drove this extraordinary global response to my tiny website that I had never anticipated. Thousands of people wrote to me from all around the world, the entire spectrum, young and old, male and female, straight and gay, pouring their hearts out, telling me things about their sex lives and their porn watching habits they'd never told anyone before. And I realized I'd uncovered a huge global social issue. And that was the point at which I went, oh my God, I now have a personal responsibility. I have to take Make Love Not Porn forward in a way that will make it much more far reaching helpful, and effective. And so I decided to turn it into a business designed to do good and make money simultaneously, which is what I believe all business should be ultimately. And so what I decided to do was, as I've said, the issue isn't porn, the issue is we don't talk about sex. So I went, okay, our mission has to be to make it easier for everybody in the world to talk openly and honestly about sex. How am I going to do that? So what I did very simply was I decided to take every dynamic in social media and apply them this one area of universal human experience that no other social network platform allows in order to socialize sex. And so I turned Make Love Not Porn into what we are today, which is the world's first and only user-generated, importantly 100% human-curated social sex video sharing platform. So we're kind of what Facebook would be if it allowed you to openly, healthily, socially, sexually self-express, which it clearly does not. The way to think about us is, if porn is the Hollywood blockbuster movie, Make Love Not Porn is the badly needed documentary. We are a unique window onto the funny, messy, loving, wonderful sex that we all have in the real world. And what we're doing, as I said, is we are socializing, normalizing, and destigmatizing sex, bringing it out of the shadows into the sunlight to promote consent, communication, good sexual values and behavior. We are literally sex education through real world demonstration.
That's amazing.
That is good. And I myself was able to go online and see some of the offerings. There are a few free offerings that anybody that goes on, and with it goes without saying that any of this, your age of consent for your appropriate area, wherever in the world you might be listening, is important. And it also goes back to what you were mentioning about consent and different things. But it is important, like I can speak for myself. Part of my sex education was you don't talk about it. And then on top of it, when you get to a certain age, here's a book. And then it's when you become of age and you are a more sexual being and you're understanding it, it's for my generation, it was the Playboy magazine or the back of the candy store where all of the, there's a small curtain. And so you look in all of these books and you try to sneak a peek. And then I came into the time when you had VHS. And so you would watch and put in a tape and, you'd see people doing things and, it becomes a little bit, you don't necessarily understand what's going on, but you get the basic mechanics of what's supposed to happen. And from what I'm getting from you is you're trying to make it so it's not like the path that I took, but it's something that can be discussed, obviously age appropriate, and say, this is what happens. And not everything that you see out there is reality.
Exactly, exactly, and I think it's very important to make the point that Make Love Not Porn has many, many social benefits and impacts beyond being a real world way to get aroused watching real world people have real world sex, and these are equally important in a cultural sense. So first of all, at Make Love Not Porn, we celebrate real world everything. Real world bodies, real world hair, real world penis size, real world breast size, real world vulvas. And the reason that's important is because you can talk body positivity all you like. You can preach self-love until you're blue in the face. At the end of the day, nothing makes us feel great about our own bodies like seeing people who are no one's idea of aspirational body types getting turned on by each other, aroused by each other, having an amazing time in bed together. because every message popular culture sends us every day tells all of us, you are not hot, you're not attractive, you're not sexually desirable unless you are this skinny, six-pack abs, look like this. Our members write to us and say, you made me feel better about my own body. You know, one man wrote and said, my girlfriend and I now feel able to be more open and sensual with each other because you made each of us feel better about our own bodies. So that's a very important part of what we do. You know, I remember one woman left a comment on a video made by a Make Love Not Porn star couple. That's what we call our contributors, Make Love Not Porn stars. You know, they were both large. And she said, it is so empowering to see a woman of my body type being sexual. You know, so that's a very important part of what we do. Then also important is, you know, all around us in popular culture currently, we are surrounded by narratives and creative expressions of relationships. But in popular culture, you know, movies, TV, Netflix, we never see the actual sex. On Make Love Not Porn, you see the actual sex, but you also see the relationships. Because in our videos, those two things are indivisible. And when I say that, I don't just mean that in our many, you know, couple, threesomed, moresomed videos, you see healthy, loving relationship dynamics within sex. In our many solo videos, because we have a ton of masturbation videos, male, female, trans, non-binary, in those videos, you see what it's like to have a healthy relationship with yourself, with your own body, your own sexuality, your own genital. You know, and that, again, is a very important part of what we are. You feel the love and the emotion radiate through the screen. And, you know, something that is really interesting is I designed Make Love Not Porn to be fully diverse and inclusive, and we are. Our members, our Make Love Not Porn stars, are all ages 18 to 80, all races, ethnicities. We're a global platform with members and traffic from over 200 countries and territories. As I said, male, female, trans, non-binary, straight, LGBTQ, asexual. But in the 12 years we've operated, we've discovered that Make Love Not Porn is especially a revelation to men. More men send us grateful emails, leave appreciative comments than anybody else because we are something utterly unique that men will find nowhere else on the internet, which is a safe space where men can be and watch other men being open, emotional, and vulnerable around sex. You would not believe the number of men who write to us regularly and say, I just watched my first video, Make Love Not Porn, and afterwards I cried. I've said for years, I wish society understood the opposite of what it thinks is true. Women enjoy sex just as much as men.
I think.
And men are just as romantic as women.
Yes.
Yet neither gender is allowed to openly celebrate either fact. We would all be so much better off if they were. I picked up a wonderful Twitter exchange a while back between two men. The first man had tweeted, as a joke, obviously, you guys got this really weird fetish. I've got this kink. Well, I want to watch porn where people are honest, loving, loyal, decent, and really like each other. Hit the hottest links, please. And another man replied and said, there's this website called Make Love Not Porn where you can watch real couples fucking and making love. He said, I watched a video where the woman said to her man, I love you, while they're making love. He said, sincerely, I cried when I heard that. Make Love Not Porn is one of the solutions to toxic masculinity.
I wanted to actually give you a little background of how this podcast came to life. And the whole idea of, I come from a very religious household. And I did not have, I would say, a really healthy relationship with sexuality from the day one. And the way I came into it, I was 13 and we went to sauna with my mom. And after the sauna and after there was a swimming pool, it was a high school. So it was all combination together. And she already washed herself. And I was 13, okay? So I found a hose. So I was like, I think the showers were busy and everybody was, like using them. And the shower was the only thing that was open. The hose. So I hosed myself, and then somehow I ended up hosing my pussy. And I was addicted. I literally, I wait for everybody to leave, right? I'm on the floor, okay? With my spread legs.
Love it, love it, love it.
So
That's
I
fantastic.
wasn't the one, so you can't blame me for creating a monster. It was created by you.
She started it all by herself.
From that
That's
time,
fantastic.
from
That's
that
fantastic.
time, I had orgies in my head. Like I had harem in my imagination where there's women, men, and I'm the queen, you know, like, and everybody's around me. Everybody's fucking like dogs, even though I didn't understand what the hell they were doing. But I just had this imagination of sensuality, sexuality with the beauty combined because I'm an artist. And so, long story short, nobody talked about it. I had three women in my household: my grandma, my mom, and my sister. My sister is 8 years older than me. None of them have talked to me about sex. When I got my period, they said, that's it. You cannot be around boys. That's it. That is all I got.
God. Oh my
Okay,
God.
and guess what I did? I have older brothers. One is 7 years older and the other one is 5. And they were fucking like bunnies, right? And I'm like, wait, he has like, I was a secretary, literally. My brother, like, I would pick up a phone. I was like maybe 15 or 16. And he's like, who is it? I said, whatever. He's like, tell her I'm not here. You know, so... And I was like, so it's okay for him to do it, but it's not okay for me. So his friends were coming over. Guess what I was doing with his friends who are 7 years older than me, right? Kissing, hugging, whatever. Nothing like deep, like intercourse, because I was too young, you know, whatever. And they were understanding the barriers. But also culture. I'm Jewish. You can't fuck me, you know, like I have to be a virgin before I get married, you know? So it's like everybody knew the rules. So there was just so much temptation. And when I got married, I was 19. One of my brothers came to me and he said, I'm not sure if you're a virgin, but I think you're not. I'm like, you motherfucker, I am. You know, that's how bad I was. Like, I was everywhere. So why I'm telling you this whole story, because when I first heard your voice, I mean, your video and whatever, I was inspired. I actually was listening to your video recording when the COVID was here. And I think you had a whole hour and 15, 20 minutes on a YouTube or some kind of platform that you recorded of your journey and how you combine business versus the platform that you have. I don't remember exactly how it was, but when I heard the details of it, how it all progressed and where it got to, rather than just listening to TED Talk that was only like 2.5 minutes, 3-4 minutes, I don't remember exactly the number. I was like, oh my God, I totally resonate with that in terms of, so the whole idea of this podcast is to empower women. So I just want to say thank you to you in terms of your dedication to empowerment of women. And I know men need empowerment as well in some cases, but I feel like when he first met me and he would go down on me, I would hide under the sheets, literally. I would hide under the sheets and he would be like, what are you doing? I'm like, he's like, how am I doing? I said, you're doing excellent. He was not doing excellent. You know, I did not know what I like. You know, I mean,
I was asking for guidance because even in my journey, I learned of, okay, it's not necessarily what I see, but part of it is the fun of it is learning somebody else.
Absolutely.
I had my moments when I was just like, yeah, I have my special move or my thing that just knocks everybody off. And it wasn't until somebody was just like, what are you doing? That doesn't work. Like, what do you, that's stupid. You know, I feel nothing. You're wasting your time. Where it's just like, okay, maybe it's not everybody. And I found it more exciting to, when you meet somebody, you kind of have to learn their body, and that's the fun. That's part of that NRE, that new relationship. Like, let me see what happens if I do this, and you find out some interesting things about a partner, and sometimes you will actually have a partner learn something new about themselves. Like, oh, well, when you did this, I didn't know I like enjoyed that. That's too. I'm going to add that to my repertoire.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And actually, and you know, I always say that, you know, at Make Love Not Porn, we answer the question, that everybody has been asking since the dawn of time, which is, what is everybody else really doing in bed?
That's amazing. Yeah.
because nobody ever knew until now, you know. And the great thing about that is how educational and inspirational that can be, you know, including, by the way, our solo masturbation videos, because in many cases, I mean, many straight men have never watched another man masturbate, you know, and they write to us and say, you know, one man said to us, I suddenly realized I could be having so much more fun masturbating, you know, and, they pick up all these tips and tricks from the other men. And the man wrote and said, I'm a straight man, and I really appreciate being able to watch other men masturbating on Make Love Not Porn, because it's really giving me ideas, and you know, and equally, you know, and I bring this up because you're in the lifestyle, but you know, one of our aims at Make Love Not Porn is to de-kinkify the kind of sex many more people will be thoroughly enjoying if they hadn't been told, oh, it's kinky. You know? So we exist to celebrate the full glorious spectrum of human sexuality. So we have many BDSM, you know, kink videos, but we have the real world version. You know, so you get to see the real world negotiating, boundary setting. You get to see the real world aftercare, you know, coming out of it. And also you get to see things like, we have a ton of role play videos. But only on Make Love Not Porn, when you see a role play video where, you know, a couple have decided they're going to play this out, halfway through, one of them turns to the other and goes, you know what, this isn't really doing it for me. The other one goes,
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's all a bit meh, isn't it? They go, let's just fuck. And it's really important.
That's great.
It's, you know, it's really important to have other people see that, because it shows it's all very low stakes. It's absolutely fine to discover halfway through you don't like something. You don't have to like power through regardless. You know. So I mean, we are reassuring, inspiring, educational, and so as a unique business, we have a unique capability. We have the power to change people's sexual attitudes and behavior for the better in a way that very few other things can.
I love that because what you have is real, and a lot of times what we see is not. I have a school-age child who asks me a lot of questions about sex, and I've, you know, after listening to you, I've always been open and honest with her, but I've also tried to, you know, keep the conversation flowing so she feels free to ask me anything. But after listening to you, we had a situation where I picked up my phone and she Googled sex. And right away I thought about you and I was like, okay, you're not in trouble, the whole thing. I said, but you have to know, if that's how you're going to try to learn about it, what you see may be not real and kind of scary. So you definitely changed the way I spoke.
Well, good. Oh, Ava, I'm thrilled to hear that. I'm thrilled to hear that. And I should tell you, I'll come on to what I'm doing for younger kids. But so parents for years have been buying their teenage children subscriptions to Make Love Not Porn, because they tell us, like I quote one parent, I want my kids to see what happy, healthy, loving sexual relationships actually look like. And, you know, we are more legal than legal at Make Love Not Porn. We are for 18 and over, but increasingly, especially in the past year, we are getting desperate emails from parents. So a mother wrote to us a few months back. He said, I've just discovered my 13-year-old son is watching Pornhub. I would much rather he watched Make Love Not Porn. I know he's underage. You know, can we find a workaround? Now, you know, our policy at Make Love Not Porn is parental judgment trumps the 18 and over only. As a parent, you know what is right for your child, especially if they are watching, you know, the kind of stuff on Pornhub that is absolutely why I started Make Love Not Porn in the first place. So, you know, where it's through a parent, you know, that mother has now gifted her 13-year-old son a subscription to Make Love Not Porn, you know, and hopefully it's helpful. But, you know, it's worth sharing with our listeners, if not everyone's aware of this. The average age today at which a child is first exposed to hardcore porn online is 6 years old.
Wow.
That comes from a survey done by Bitdefender of 19,000 parents worldwide. And by the way, that survey was done 12 years ago. Okay, so you can bet it's even worse now.
How is that possible that it's 6 years old?
And because it's not because they go looking for porn, they stumble upon it. And by the way, they can stumble upon it on Snapchat.
Yeah.
They can stumble upon it on YouTube. Okay, porn is not restricted to porn sites, and they can stumble upon it through, in the most innocent ways. So I am, I and my team are building at the moment the answer to something parents have begged us for since day one of Make Love Not Porn, which is the 0 to 18 and beyond sex education expansion, MakeLoveNotPorn.academy. And the reason this is so necessary is, so I have a friend who's a mother, and as you have to these days, she monitors her kids' browsing history. So this happened a few years ago. Her son was 8 years old, and she saw, to her horror, on the family computer, he had Googled sex for children. So she freaked out, but did the right thing. Stayed calm, sat him down. Darling, I happen to see that you were, talk me through why. This anecdote is adorable and horrifying in equal measure because her son wanted to learn about sex. He was a child. He knew he was a child. He wanted to learn about sex in a child-appropriate way. He sweetly, innocently Googled sex for children. You can imagine the kind of thing that came back utterly traumatized. And so we are building an aggregator hub for the best of the world's sex education content, because in the course of 16 years of working on Make Love Not Porn, I built up a huge network globally of brilliant sex educator friends who all face the same challenges I do. Their content gets blocked on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Their accounts get suspended. They're banned from promoting themselves. They can't even make a living doing this. And so what we're doing is we are bringing all of that content together on one platform, making it searchable by age appropriateness, by cultural sensibility. We will have Christian sex ed, Jewish sex ed, Muslim sex ed, by personal comfort level. But at a time when open, healthy sex education is being blocked, censored, and deplatformed everywhere, our mission at MakeLoveNotPorn.academy is to organize the world's sex education information to make it universally accessible and useful. That is a deliberate paraphrase of Google's original mission statement, to organize the world's information to make it universally accessible and useful, because today they don't. The algorithm is biased and it's censoring. And so we are making the best of the world's sex ed content available to everybody, children, young people, parents, teachers, schools, adults, etc. So I encourage our listeners to go and check out, we have a holding site at MakeLoveNotPorn.academy, and you can find more details there. And we hope to launch this. We're running an equity crowdfunding campaign. If we can hit our goal, we hope to launch this later on this year.
That's awesome.
Absolutely amazing. With that, you're breaking a lot of norms, right? Do you face any type of censorship or challenges in doing so?
So, I have to say, first of all, Ava, in 16 years, Make Love Not Porn has had a universally positive response all around the world from people generally. But the one thing I did not realize when I embarked on this was that I and my tiny team would fight a battle every single day, not even to grow Make Love Not Porn, just to keep it alive. Basically because every piece of business infrastructure any other tech startup takes for granted, we can't. The small print always says no adult content. And that is all pervasive across every single area of the business in ways that people outside the sphere don't realize. I can't get funded. I couldn't get banked. It took me 4 years to find one bank here in America that would allow me to open a business bank account.
Wow.
Make Love Not Porn. Prior doing business for 4 years without a business bank account. Can't tell how I did it in ways I shouldn't have, makes life very difficult. Every tech service I need to use to operate a video platform, hosting, encoding, encrypting, the terms of service always say no adult content. In every single case, I have to go to the people at the top of the company, explain what I'm doing, beg to be allowed to use their service. Sometimes they let me, sometimes I don't. This is very labor intensive, and I never get to work with best in class of anything, business partner wise. My two biggest business growth inhibitors are number one, payments. PayPal won't work with adult, Stripe won't, mainstream credit card processors won't. I have to work with the murky subculture of adult-friendly payment processors who, because anybody adult has nowhere else to go, charge extortionate fees. I pay out 12% of my revenue every month in payment processing fees alone, when the most rate is 3% or less. That's a massive growth inhibitor. And the other growth inhibitor is that we are banned from advertising Make Love Not Porn anywhere. We cannot advertise on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Reddit. I ask you, look at what's on Reddit. We are banned. Reddit will not allow us to advertise there. Twitter, look at what's on Twitter. Twitter banned us from advertising. And what is really frustrating about this is, we're banned from doing paid search ads on Google. But right now, all around the world, every day, people are searching for Make Love Not Porn without knowing that we exist. And what I mean by that is, the top organic search terms that send traffic to us are Make Love, Not Porn, Real Sex Not Porn, Video Sexo Na Porno, Make Love Not Porn, where they don't know there's a company called that. One young man told me that he found us when he Googled porn that is not porn. He was so out there. What's something different? Nobody wants to look for. When you search porn that is not porn, you find Make Love Not Porn. That's how much the world wants what we are. Documented porn, Hollywood movie, and knows it needs us.
I wanted to let our audience know your screening process, because I heard it, but I want you to tell us more about it, because I think this is very, very important part of it, of what you do.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, Pinky. And I'm going to contextualize that in the broader tech landscape as a whole, because the young white male founders of the giant tech platforms that dominate all our lives today, they are not the primary targets, online or offline, of harassment, abuse, sexual assault, racism, violence, rape, intimate image abuse. Therefore, they did not and they do not proactively design for the prevention of any of those things on their platforms. And we see the results around us every day. Those of us who are most at risk every day, women, Black people, people of color, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, we design safe spaces and safe experiences, but we don't get funded. Only 1.7% of all venture capital last year went to female founders. And that is why we've still not seen how much safer, better, happier, and more lucrative the future of the internet can be when it's designed and built through the female lens, two keywords, at scale. I designed Make Love Not Porn through the female lens to be the safest place on the internet. Because I designed around what everybody else should have, nobody else did, human curation. There is no self-publishing of anything on Make Love Not Porn. Our curators watch every frame of every video submitted from beginning to end before we approve or reject, and we publish it. No one else does that. We review every post on every member profile. And by the way, on Make Love Not Porn, those posts can be of safe work or not safe work as you like, but we review them, we approve or reject, and we publish them. No one else does that. We review every comment on every video before we approve or reject and publish it. No one else does that. We can vouch for every single piece of content on our platform in a way that nobody else can. And the key point about that is we are tiny, bootstrapping, have no money, and we've human curated everything for 12 years. Imagine what Facebook, Instagram, TikTok could do with their billions if they chose to. Safety on the internet is not a matter of viability, it's a matter of will. And we take safety to lengths no one else has even dreamt of. So when you submit a video, first of all, you have to submit, full identifying details, 2 forms of government-issued ID. And by the way, every other adult site on the internet only requires 1. We require 2. And by the way, it's absolutely fine if you want to be anonymous, in your video. You can wear masks, faces in shadow, pixelate, out of frame. But if you submit an anonymous video, we require you to submit a full-face photo of yourself holding your government-issued visual ID up next to your face. No one else does that. So we then, as I said, watch your video from beginning to end. And even when all of that paperwork has been submitted and we check it with human eyes, our curators are trained to watch every video, asking themselves, as I watch this video, do I feel the camera is in a position where everyone knows it's there? Do I have a bad feeling about this video? Because what we say to them is, if you have a bad feeling, no need to rationalize it, no need to explain it. Simply having a bad feeling is enough. We will not publish that video. Nobody goes 100th of the way towards keeping their community safe like we do. Then, when we approve and publish your video, our commitment to you is the moment anything changes, your relationship, your life, your circumstances, even just your mind, you tell us, we take your video down immediately. And what I mean by that is, there is no online application process. There is no waiting period. All you do is message us, and as somebody did the other day, within 15 minutes, your videos are gone. We might publish your video, one day. You are free to change your mind overnight. We'll take it down next morning. Nobody else operates like that to keep their members safe.
This
That's amazing.
shows the humanity that behind it and how you're really definitely empowering women and make sure that they're safe. That is so important. Thank you.
So I'm very interested in this Make Love Not Porn Academy and how you're breaking down sex education for parents to speak to their children. Do you have any advice for parents when trying to educate their children and talk to them in a sex positive way?
Absolutely, Ava, because parents have been writing to me for 16 years, since day one of Make Love Not Porn. And I can't wait to launch the academy and actually turn the advice that I've been giving them to a mini masterclass of my own. But there are two key pieces of advice that I want to share with you and our listeners because they may be helpful. So first of all, what I say to parents today is, today you cannot begin talking to your child about sex too early. And when I say that, I don't mean literally talk about sex. What I mean is, the very first time they ask where babies come from, they play with their genitals, the most important thing isn't even what you say as much as how you say it. Never ever get visibly flustered. Never get embarrassed, never get snappy, do not, shut them up, change the topic of conversation, leave the room. Instead, answer them calmly, straightforwardly, truthfully, because by doing that, you open up a channel of communication between you and them that will be there for the rest of their lives. And that's important because the one thing every parent wants above everything else is for their child to be happy. This area will impact your child's happiness more than almost any other. And so it's critically important that you open up that communication channel between you. And then the second piece of advice I give to parents is, today, when you talk to your child about sex, however early, however young they are, you must also, at the same time, talk to your child about porn. And this is a lot easier to do than most parents think, because all you have to do is say a version of what I'm about to share with you, and you dial it up or down depending on the age of the child. So you say, so darling, we've just talked about sex. And you know how together we watch movies and videos and cartoons where things happen that aren't real. Well, there are also movies and videos about sex, and they're not real either. And because of that, they can be quite confusing. So we would rather didn't watch them till you're older. But if anybody ever shows you anything like that, or you stumble across it, come and talk to us, come and talk to me, I can explain it. That's all you have to say. You can stop the conversation right there. Because just by saying that, you've done two very important things. The first is that you've set up in their minds, when they stumble across porn, as they will, it's not real. And the second thing you've said is, come and talk to me about it. You'll want them to do that because what they stumble across is likely to be utterly traumatizing.
That's amazing.
I wish I had you then when I was 15, and my first experience actually seeing sex was on VCR. And of course, I have older brothers, as I said earlier, and my girlfriends were in my house, and we were just curious, like, what's in there? Let's just check it out. Push the button, go. We pushed the button, and three of us, we were 15, and we froze. We were I was screaming. Two of them were screaming. It's not real. It's not real. Turn it off. We can, and that was my education, like literally.
Yeah, I had a similar VCR thing, just as I mentioned earlier. Of it's usually getting a Playboy or Penthouse or in the back of a magazine shop, or there was the tape that got handed around between the guys. So I had my turn with the tape, and of course, it gets stuck in the VCR. I never
Oh my God!
figured out how to disassemble a VCR and put it back together and take out a tape that had got caught into the tape head and all of this.
Oh, and don't break it because it's not yours.
And yeah,
you have to give it to somebody.
not to break it either. So yeah, that was
a lot of pressure.
That was something else.
And if somebody who does not know what VCR is,
yeah, but for these generations, it is so different. So when I got that torrent of emails from around the world after my TED talk, one woman wrote to me and said, I watched my first porn at 8 years old. It was a gangbang. A mother wrote to me, and the header of her email was, "My 13-year-old daughter felt so empowered watching your TED talk." And this is a mother who obviously has a very good relationship with her daughter, because she said, my daughter's 13, and at that age, the kids are passing around all sorts of videos, and the more extreme, the better. But my daughter showed me the latest one that they're circulating, which shows a woman having a glass jar pushed up her anus until it breaks.
Oh my goodness.
And this mother wrote to me and she said, "I'm terrified of the world my daughter's growing up into. Is this what she's going to think sex is? Blood and shards of glass." But thank you so much for what you're doing. I'm so grateful. A father wrote to me, a stranger on Facebook. His message was headed, "My wife and I cannot thank you enough." He said, "We have a 10-year-old son, and we decided that it was time to have the sex talk." So I sat down with him, and he said to me, "Daddy, why do men wear masks when they're having sex?" And this father said, "We have parental controls on our iPad, and my 10-year-old son has somehow managed to find his way to a site where men wear masks when they're having sex." He said, "We can't thank enough. When he's older, we're sending him to your website." I mean, that is the reality that is happening right now. And honestly, I am my own research lab. As I said, I date younger men. I see for myself exactly how this plays out in the real world all the time. And so, I can't wait to launch MakeLoveNotPorn.academy, because parents need help, teachers and schools need help. And by the way, we will have the best of school curricula that teachers can choose from for the classroom, as well as parents will get help, whatever age their child is, with the ability, with tools and content that make it easy to have whatever conversation.
Well, speaking of younger, question for you. You have, over the years, had many experiences, but hypothetical question here. If you could go back to your younger self and give yourself one key piece of advice about sex and relationships, what would that be?
Honestly, in my case, it would absolutely be, get everything your parents have impressed upon you out of your head. And I say that because, like you guys, my parents never talked about sex. The extent of my mother's conversation around this was, she said to me and my sisters, "Girls, you stay virgin till you marry," being Chinese. I grew up in Asia, nobody talked about it. And I internalized that repression, and I feel very fortunate, actually, because, while I grew up in a very repressed environment, The moment I started having sex, I went, this is amazing. Why are people so messed up about it? And somehow I made it through all of that without it having any kind of negative impact, on me. But I would absolutely go back and say, ignore all that repression. Sex is a wonderful thing. And, people shouldn't be so messed up about it, basically.
What are some daily practices or mindset that help you stay bold and unapologetic in your mission? Sorry.
Honestly, I'm asked regularly, Cindy, how on earth do you keep going through all of the challenges you face? And fortunately, I mean, the first thing is, our community writes to us every day and tells us how we've changed their lives. So, I have a business that is doing amazing work in the world. And just so you know, ultimately, our mission at Make Love Not Porn is to help end rape culture globally. Now, that may sound like a very big mission, but we have 12 years of proof of concept at a micro level. We help end rape culture by doing something very simple that no one else is doing. We end rape culture by showing you how wonderful, great consensual communicative sex is in the real world. Our social sex videos role model good sexual values and good sexual behavior. And here's the important part. We make all of that aspirational versus what you see in porn and popular culture. One man left a comment saying, this video makes me want to be a better man in the bedroom and in life. We can do that. So that keeps you going. But fortunately, the dynamic that most motivates me is the one that I characterize as, I'm going to fucking well show you. You tell me it can't be done, I'm going to fucking well show you.
Good for
You
you.
put a barrier in my path, I'm going to fucking well show you. I take all of that daily demoralization, discouragement, depression, and I turn it into motivation and inspiration because I have to.
That is amazing. I do want to bring back a little bit of your mission in terms of bringing sex into schools. How are you dealing with that? I mean, I can only imagine, but if you could talk about that a little bit, that would be great.
Is that going, do you have any schools at the moment or any educational organizations that have started to adopt your curriculum or your recommendations?
I'm not yet, because we have not yet launched MakeLoveNotPorn Academy. So that's when we do. But I can absolutely tell you that my agenda with the Academy is, so for years people have said to me, oh, Cindy, you should go to schools. Make Love Porn should be on the curriculum. And I've always said, no, I shouldn't, because anyone trying to bring sex ed into school comes up against Parent-Teacher Association, moral panic. But here's the thing. The people keeping sex ed out of school, they don't know what it'd be like if they allowed it in. They just know they're really bad. In their heads, they have this abstract concept of Sodom and Gomorrah will ensue. When I launch MakeLoveNotPorn.academy later this year, as hopefully I will if we can hit our funding goal, and when they can see what doesn't exist anywhere, the best of the world's sex education content all in one place, when you can see at a glance how brilliant, informative, healthy, educational, and non-threatening it is, and when you can search it, you can choose by age appropriateness, by cultural sensibility. Importantly, you can pick and choose by personal comfort level. We're just building the Google of sex ed. You decide what's right for your family, your school, your classroom. That is when I think I can get sex ed in schools. I'm building outside the system, get it into the system.
Oh, I love that. It's definitely bold and forward. Yeah. And I think the world would be in such a better place if we all actually accept that. And one of the things that I wanted to say about being in an open relationship over the last 3 years now with my husband, my communication, our communication, but I want to start with myself first in terms of everything has grown exponentially. And I see that not only in a relationship, but I also see that at my work, what I do, it's just changed dramatically.
Yep.
So when Pinky sent me the TED Talk, I was so impressed, and I started researching you and listening to all sorts of podcasts. And you were talking about your relationship dynamics, and I found them to be very similar to kind of how I do relationships. So can you talk a little bit about your dynamics in your relationships?
Sure. So first of all, I should explain that, like everything else in my life, dating younger men happened by accident. And what I mean by that is many years ago, something like 23 years ago now, I was running an advertising agency here in New York, and we were asked to pitch for an online dating brand that was coming out of the UK and wanted to expand into the American market. And in the advertising industry, when you pitch for a client's account, you have to experience the client's product and the entire competitive landscape. So we all had to online date. And this was 23 years ago, and none of us on the agency pitch team ever had. Because, back then, online dating was not, online dating wasn't a thing. It was just starting as a sector. So the rest of my pitch team at the agency were all already married, living with, dating people. They all went online as fake personas. They created identities, false profiles. I was single. I thought, okay, I have to do this for business reasons. Why not do it for real? Why not find out what this whole online thing is all about? So I posted my profile on a bunch of sites. I was very honest about everything, including my age. I got an avalanche of responses, which is very good for the ego. But much to my surprise, because I had not identified this as a dating strategy, 75% of those responses were from younger men. And the majority of those were from much younger men. And I suddenly realized that I was every young guy's fantasy. Attractive older woman, high-flying career, didn't want to settle down, never wanted to be married, didn't want children. I just wanted to have some fun, which at the time, I just started up an ad agency in the world's toughest advertising marketplace, Madison Avenue. I was working 24/7, fun wasn't really happening. So I thought, wow, haven't thought about doing this, works for me. So I've been dating younger men very happily ever since. But it's important to say that I am nobody's idea of a cougar. And what I mean by that is, I'm very open about the fact that I date younger men casually, recreationally. I date a lot of them simultaneously. But I've one fundamental criteria. No matter how casual a relationship, they have to be a very nice person. I have fantastic radar for very nice people. As a result, I only date utterly lovely younger men in an atmosphere of mutual trust, respect, affection, liking. And so rather ironically, my so-called casual relationships go on a lot longer than most people's so-called committed ones. I date younger men off and on, sporadically, over periods of 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years. They may go on to date women their own age. They may marry women their own age. We like each other. We stay friends. We might meet platonically for coffee or drink. Every so often those relationships end, every so often those marriages end, they come back. It's very nice.
That is very interesting. I mean, I speak from my experience of coming up. I was introduced into this by an older woman, and there is a educational aspect of something that I heard you said. You set certain boundaries and expectations from the beginning, and that was something that I had the experience of. It's just like as you get older, you don't tolerate certain behaviors. And if that's going to be what you're about, okay, no problem. I don't think you would be a correct match for me. So my experience with that, there's some people who have a very, if it becomes fetishized, that, oh, it's an older woman. But for me, it was as a defining moment and how I actually approached all my other relationships, even though I had my moments of like, you know what, yeah, the bro culture type of thing, or kind of like I always tell Pinky, she says, I wish I would have met you many years ago. And I tell her, no, you don't, because I was an asshole. I was definitely an asshole. And, I have it in me. She's thinks that everything is nice, but it's a conscious effort.
Mm,
It's, you know, I've learned how to be it, and sometimes it is necessary. It's like I embrace all of my characteristics.
mm,
Okay, there's a time to be an asshole, and there's a time to be a gentleman, and
mm.
knowing when those times are very important, and something that does come with age and maturity.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
I really love how you talk about, you want variety, right? You like dating multiple people, but they have to be a good person.
Mm,
Because I think for us being non monogamous, a lot of times people think, oh, we'll just have sex with anybody.
mm.
And for me, that is a component of it. Like, you have to be a nice person.
Yeah.
Pinky and I talk all the time about how we like consistency. We want to hear from you. We want to see you. And I have relationships like you do that have gone on for 6 years at this point,
Mm.
right? That started off casual, but have been consistently casual over 6 years.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
welcome.
And they're, yes, thank you. And they're amazing. They're better relationships than I ever had when I was monogamous.
Mm. Yep, absolutely. And the interesting thing is, so as I said earlier, Make Love Not Porn exists to reflect the full glorious spectrum of human sexuality. And so one thing we do is we reflect the full glorious spectrum of how real world people negotiate real world relationships. So on Make Love Not Porn, that runs the gamut from, for example, we have a Make Love Not Porn star who is married, and she and her husband have an agreement. Once a year, she is permitted to meet up with her high school sweetheart and fuck his brains out in a motel room. Now we assume this agreement is reciprocal. We don't know because those are the videos that she posts on Make Love Not Porn, and she shares this in the introductory narrative. The husband doesn't share anything. But I love the fact that she talks about that. She shows us videos because if you are a couple thinking about taking the first steps towards opening up, that's a very interesting approach. It's a previous known quantity. It's once a year. It's the gateway, if you like, to kind of test the waters. Then of course we have a ton of polyamorous Make Love Not Porn stars, who really enjoy sharing, all of their different partners and so on. And that's again fantastic as well, because what you see on Make Love Not Porn is, again, you see the real world version. You see the respect, the empathy, the sensitivity with which all of that is handled. And that's really important and educational. Again, for anybody, looking at this who might be thinking about trying out non-monogamy.
I would say that sometimes what you imagine in your wild imagination is not becoming a reality. So it's been like, I had an experience last week and it was like, yeah, that just has to stay in my imagination. But I had to live it, to see it, to feel it, to experience.
Absolutely.
So it's like, it's amazing.
And in the same way, actually, what I love about what we're doing at Make Love Not Porn is we are also absolutely expanding people's sexual horizons. So we have, our tag for these is P-play videos, golden showers. And our members leave comments like, I never ever thought that I would find this a turn on, but when I see how you two engage around it, talking to the Make Love Not Porn stars in the video, this was amazing. And so people, we help make people much more open-minded, which also, by the way, has a wonderful knock-on benefit in their own sex lives. Because one man left a comment on a video saying, I'm afraid this is a while back, I can't remember what the video was of, but saying, this was something, I'd seen it in porn, I'd always wanted to try it, didn't want to bring it up with my wife. We watched this video together. She went, ooh, let's try that. We did. It was amazing. Thank you so much. When you're seeing the real world version, how to go about it in the real world, that encourages people to try things they would never have thought of trying otherwise.
I have the quote that I usually use. It's mine. I also write poems, so it's my poetic quote. I usually say open and raw, and you're definitely open and raw.
Yes. And we want to thank you, Cindy, for spending the time with us and sharing with our audience your wonderful site. If anybody wants to go, it's MakeLoveNotPorn.com. And as you said, later on this year, you plan to have MakeLoveNotPorn.academy. And besides that, are there any other projects or things that people should be looking out on the horizon for you?
Honestly, that is quite enough. It's enough of a battle. I'm not kidding. It's a battle every day to keep Make Love Not Porn going. So I would enormously appreciate our listeners' support. Please go to MakeLoveNotPorn.com, sign up, subscribe. Our subscriptions start at $10 a month, very affordable. And also, I would love our listeners to consider becoming Make Love Not Porn stars. We have a revenue share model. It's a 50-50 split of everything that your video makes, and we just welcome anybody and everybody. You've heard me talk about how much our community is designed around respect. We'll take your videos down the moment you don't want them up anymore. But we want more and more people to share their real world sex on Make Love Not Porn, because when you do that, you often find it's transformative for you, but you're also transforming other people's lives for the better.
Sounds like we have a project we need to work on.
I think you do.
We'll have to sit down and talk about that. I don't know if
We'll
I'm ready to
negotiate.
I don't know if I'm ready to make my debut. I'm glad on the time that I was born that there are no videos out there that will pop up. There was something about that time when not everything needed to be recorded. But yes, thank you very much, Cindy, for spending your evening with us and with our audience and sharing. Hopefully we can get you on again. I think the ladies would like to hear some of your salacious stories on a pajama party episode. I'm beginning to think you might have one or two that you might be willing to share, but we'll leave it at that. For our listeners, if you do sign up for Make Love Not Porn, I believe that you're going to give them we're going to put out a coupon code or a promo code so that you know that the traffic came from us, and we will put that up in the show notes. Anything else, ladies?
I have one question. One thing that always makes you feel powerful.
Honestly, I don't think about like that because I always feel powerful.
That is
You definitely give off that
yes.
powerful vibe for sure.
And your smile, your presence, just speaks volume.
And I can see why Pinky gravitated towards you, because you are very strong-willed. You see something and you go for it, which is just, I don't care, man, woman, whatever. That's something that is a very admirable trait. So much success with your website and your mission, and we will see you on our next episode. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.